Hello everyone. So the following video is simply a verbalization of a PowerPoint I've used for years in my class just to give a briefest outline of the life and times of Sir Isaac Newton. One of the three great men of physics, along with Maxwell and Einstein. Sir Isaac Newton's work in the late 1600s was truly seminal and defined much of mechanical physics even today. So I hope you enjoy this short video on the life of Sir Isaac Newton. So Newton was born on the 25th of December 1642. If you used the Julian calendar, which was still being preserved historically, even though the Gregorian calendar had been set up in the 1570s due to the changes in leap years and so on. So if we use the modern calendar, his actual birthday is the 4th of January 1643, in a place called Woolsthorpe, England. Now the British keep their history pretty well, and you can see on the right there the picture of his birthplace, which is preserved. And down in the lower left here is a descendant, if you will, of what is perceived to be the apple trees that motivated Newton for his theory of gravitation. For most people say that he was not a prodigy in the standard sense, say like Gauss was, and he attended the King's School in Grantham, and ultimately by 16 or so ended up at Trinity College in Cambridge. Newton's primary aim and ability initially, of course, was in mathematics. Now today when we do mathematics, it is primarily algebra based, but in those days they were still dealing with the mathematics of Euclid, so that when you proved things, you proved them using geometric theorems. So they would have literally hundreds of theorems in their mind in the same way that we might have algebraic tools today. Newton's formative years included the one of the final massive plagues that came across the European cities. The Black Death of the 1660s resulted in the death of approximately 1/3 of the population of London, a horrible statistic. And we have even nursery rhymes based on these things. The short story was that the rich left the city, locking the poor in the city, and went out to the countryside where apparently the illness wasn't as bad. Somebody thought the cats and dogs were the problem, so they were put down. But of course this simply caused an explosion of the rat population, and this of course it was the mites on the lice of the rats which was carrying this. We also have to remember that sanitation in these years really was non-existent, and if you were to go back to that time you would find there's a situation really disgusting in the way that the cleanliness and the type of way that people lived in those days. And of course those types of things spread these things much more easily because there's no cleanup or sanitation that can kill these bacteria and or viruses. Anyhow, Newton, the well at Cambridge University for some reason did not seem to be causing sickness. And ultimately the young scientists were sent home for their safety, and thus Newton ended up at his mother's home. And Newton's father died when he was very young, and she remarried, and Newton's personality was a very difficult one, and so he didn't get along very well. And Newton was one of those people who seemingly was able to take a bad situation and make it worse. Apparently when he was about 18 or so, there was a young lady he fancied, and she ultimately decided to marry someone else, and which is probably a very fine choice on her part, but nevertheless Newton's heart was broken, and for about 3 months he had troubles paying attention to his paperwork. And so in one resource that I looked at, he was angered that his work would be held up by a quote-unquote mere female, and that because of this he resolved to never have anything more to do with the species. Now, to be clear, these are his words, and but so as far as we know, there was never a Mrs. Newton. There are no little Newtons. He was a confirmed bachelor for the rest of his 85 years. Newton contributed a profound amount to scientific development in many fields, and certainly there's too much of that to chronicle here. But just to give you a basic idea, concepts like binomial theorem, Newton's laws for predicting the roots of functions that you will see in your elementary calculus course, the concept and development of the reflecting telescope. And this was based, if you look in the right corner, if you see the prism and how it disperses the colors of the light. He felt that the lenses of the telescope would always do this and that you would get imperfect readings. And so he decided to design a telescope that was made entirely with mirrors that would prevent this. Remarkably, today, we use large mirror telescopes, not so much because of the chromatic aberration, which we can to some extent offset with other lenses, but because we can make huge mirrors one way or the other. And lenses are kind of limited to maybe a meter or so in size. Otherwise, they distort and don't maintain their shape. It's also very hard to get a lens that doesn't have any bubbles in it. So today we use reflecting telescopes exclusively, almost, in our work. As you will see in the course, we see the law of gravitation. He also learned about interference of light, even though he didn't really see light as a wave. So there's an interesting conundrum there. And he spent a fair amount of time on alchemy, the ancient science of converting, if you will, lead into gold by chemistry type objects. And of course, this is a flawed pseudoscience where you're trying to create a nuclear change with molecular type means. But he still made but he was also very reluctant to publish because he was very thin-skinned about any type of criticism. Now, often he was right, even when he was criticized, but his personality made that difficult. And it's an odd position today for a scientist because, the old story today as a scientist is, you publish or perish, and so his time was a bit different. Now, Newton's true claim to fame was a publication that he wrote actually in his 40s, although much of the work he'd actually done when he was in his 20s. Robert Hooke and Newton were in many ways arch enemies, but nevertheless, Hooke always would involve Newton when he needed to, recognizing the man's talent. There was a great comet of 1680 and 81 that was visible quite easily in the sky. And Newton had formalized his ideas in gravitational theory on 9 sheets of paper and sent a copy to Halley. And this is work he had done a long time ago. Now, there are other stories to this. Halley had seen the comet, was trying to do the math on it, went and saw Newton and asked him if he could figure it out. Newton said he'd done it a long time ago and had to go find it in his papers. Whatever. But when Halley saw the paper, he saw the tremendous innovations that Newton had generated and insisted one way or the other that this be published. And Newton, interestingly, agreed to do so. From the standpoint of basic everyday science, this may be the most important book so far ever written. And it turned out to be a difficult book to read. And this is why, for example, today students in high school don't get a copy of the Principia necessarily. The book was written in Latin, which was the serious language of science, and as you can see from one of the insets here, he's dealing with all of the proofs of his calculations and so on with geometric Euclidean type geometry, making it very difficult to read for most people. It is known, its official title was the the Principles of Mathematics in Natural Philosophy. Natural philosophy, of course, is science in the old way, and usually we just simply describe this book as the Principia, which is the principles in Latin. So this took 3 years, starting around 1684, and was published in 1687. And Newton became very well known thereafter. He was elected to the Royal Society, later became its leader, and made other major contributions in the next 15-odd years. So as I mentioned, Newton joined the Royal Society in 1693. He was later its president. In this time, apparently, he went and paid people to go back through the books and made sure that Robert Hooke did not claim credit for anything that Newton himself had done. So there was some very significant spite in those days as well as today. He made the first legitimate scientific study of light and published it in a book called Optics in 1704. And this was written in English and using algebra, and therefore much easier to understand, and in comparison and not as mathematical either. In 1706 he was knighted by Queen Anne when she came to visit Cambridge, and thus became Sir Isaac Newton. But prior to this there was a breakdown, 1704-ish. No one is sure. There was no autopsy done on Newton, and even if there had been, it's hard to say what they would have found. It could have been meningitis or some other illness. Maybe he had a small stroke. Whatever really happened is hard to say. But what we do know is after about this time, Newton was no longer the genius that he had been before. There was some brain damage of some kind or other. Now, he lived on for quite a while thereafter. And as you'll see in the next slide, found himself a day job. Now, given his fame and all the rest, Newton, of course, attracts a great amount of irreverent wit, I suppose. In 1696, the king gave him a job at the Tower of London, which is, of course, where a lot of the money is made. In British history, of course, we all know the Tower of London is a place where some royals have met their ends, but that's not really what this was about. So he was on for 2 or 3 years to get a sense of the problems, and in 1699 was hired as the master of the mint, and he kept on this for the rest of his life. There was a major issue of counterfeiting. And what people would do is trim the edge off of a coin, and then they get a pile of these clippings, as they call them, and then you could melt that and make new coins. And so the coin that you had trimmed it off was slightly smaller and would still be used. Newton was the one who invented the milling. So if you look on the edge of a penny or whatever coin you have, there is some milling on the outside, and if that's not present, then the coin is no longer of any value. And this stopped clipping. He also went in disguise, apparently in some places in London, to catch counterfeiters, and from depending on who you speak, had a number of them sent to the gallows. So it's took his work very seriously. The time that he spent in alchemy, we think, probably led to uptake of mercury, and as a consequence may have led to additional eccentricities as he got older. And he died in 1727, perhaps of a kidney stone infection. Now, that's a whole new definition to the word pain. But whatever, he lived to be 85. He's buried in the Abbey, and you can see here his crypt in this picture. And thus, then, is the story of Sir Isaac Newton. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of his times and the type of personality that he was. And if you enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing. And the next one, we'll talk about his 4 laws in some detail, the 3 laws, and of course the law of universal gravitation. Thank you again for watching.